feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks and coming at you Thursday morning. It's February 13th after the Wolves' 2-point loss at home to the Milwaukee Bucks on Wednesday evening, who were without Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. And it was a game that they were down by those 2 points with just 11 seconds left in the game, and the Wolves had the ball. I got Britt Robson here with me from Min-Post today. And Britt, that's where I want to start with this one. Just how it went down and how it kind of, that last possession, how it just sort of stays on pattern of, you know, what these late game situations that have been abundant for the Wolves have been. Where, you know, I don't know, maybe watched it back this morning, looked at some numbers. Where are you at on that shot and just the Wolves and Ants overall kind of process at the end of games when it comes to, kind of clutch decision making there?
Well, I just thought it was the fitting ending to a game where they really assumed that they were going to pull it out in the last minute, almost from the beginning. They were not a one step at a time, play-by-play mindset. They were when it gets close, we'll win it, against fairly significant evidence that that's not the case this year. And I also think that Ant on a pull-up three down 2 in the last 10 or 11 seconds is not the worst thing you can have. Until this season, had really good clutch numbers, actually. And I just think that his justice was served, I guess is what I would say, is that this team played with a smug assurance that they would win. And that smugness was their undoing. That's why they lost. What bothers me the most about it, I guess, is that the timing of it is really bad. They are about to go play 3 of the next 4 games against just an absolute juggernaut of a team. And the other games on either side of that are Houston and the Lakers. So they have a 5-game stretch where they're just going to play really good teams. Mm-hmm. And they needed to build some momentum. And this was a gimme game. And what made it worse is Ant has called out the team in November for this kind of attitude. Finch has called out this team more recently in games. You can't call out a team before they're about to go play a juggernaut for the final game before a week-long stint. It would be a terrible look right now to blast the team, either from the coaching situation or the locker room situation, and leave that impression coming into a game where they're probably going to get waxed tonight against OKC, and that they have a week to think about it. So this kind of thing, there's no craftsmanship in this team right now. They don't set the nail. They don't plane the smoothness into the wood. Whatever you want, whatever your definition of how things are built with integrity, they are not building their basketball team with integrity right now. And it's blatantly obvious. I mean, the casual fan would have seen this last night and known that they coughed up a game that was eminently winnable.
So you bring up the schedule in the next 5 games, 3 against OKC, that Lakers game and the Rockets game. And I think as you're talking there, and I have the last thing in my mind of how that game closed last night, and Ant and his sort of folly late in games that's continuing. 3 of 11 when the Wolves are trailing by 3 or fewer points with under a minute to go this season. And in his career, he's 2 of 21 with a chance to tie or take the lead with 24 seconds or less left in the fourth quarter or overtime. Objectively, at 23 years old, not good at executing in those scenarios at a high clip. That's right. That's just what it is so far. But and last night you even get to that situation due to the casual approach that you're talking about. But what is going to happen in those next 5 games, or at least in a few of them, is he's going to play incredible.
Yes. Oh, without a doubt.
And I'm not arguing with you on that,
Right.
but like that's the other side of the coin with him is like I do think he'll beat OKC one time. I think you were saying that last night. You disagree with that. We're going to talk about OKC. That's zero shade to OKC. I think they're going to win the championship. But like there is just these different gears to Ant that people who are watching the games you can see, and I think it's like even more apparent. I mean, you and I are talking about sitting at these games at Target Center where you just can in the first quarter or a little ways into the game you can tell.
Right.
Yeah, you can tell where Ant is at in the game, and it was clear last night. Again, 23 years old, just more of a casual approach, and he won't have that in those other games. It'll, get this one back. But the issue is they kind of need both right now, given
Absolutely.
where they're at and their stated goals of where they're of where they're going. And I just think is that a frustration overall to have about this is the way that Ant is? Sure. It's also something that in theory can and will be ironed out, over time. And it's about getting these reps. And even if they're bad reps right now, theoretically getting these reps create a better process. I said that 2 of 21 in his career with a chance to tie or take the lead with 24 seconds or less left in the fourth quarter or overtime. Shout out John Krasinski. I stole that from his article read this morning. But I went back and I watched those. And both of the makes come off of passes. I think you'll remember both of the plays.
Yeah.
The Memphis
The
series.
Dallas, right. Go ahead.
No.
It's Sacramento, right?
Nope. 0 for 2. Just like Ant. No, it's the Memphis series. J-Max in the game to close the game. D'Lo's out. They run that kind of like hammer action where J-Mac comes to the middle right away and Ant peels off to the right corner and he's open there for catch and shoot 3. Hits a game tying 3. And then the other one is against Houston this year where Ant's got he's going right to left step back right on the above the break on the left side. And that's Nikhil also kind of getting into the nail, finding Ant and stepping over and Ant being able to get to a step back over there. You watch the other 19 and it's not all 19 of them are like pound the rock and, exclusively go get it yourself. But he literally hasn't made those. And that's what last night was. And again, I say this to mean like, what can we learn out of these, whether it's Ant, whether it's Finch, whatever, like if that happens tonight when they're playing OKC and they're down by 2 with 11 seconds to go and they got a timeout in the bag, we run this back again the same way, expecting a different result. At some point, a different result is going to happen in these things as Ant's going to get better at it just over time. But I just think he needs guidance in this process right now. We talked to Finch after the game and he was cool with the shot that Ant took. He explained not using a timeout because he didn't want the defense to come in there.
That made sense. The first part made sense. The being okay with the shot. Look, the ones I remember, and the reason I referenced he's been pretty good in the clutch in the past before this season is because he has been somebody who's been really good at when they're down a dozen with 4 minutes left in the game, putting on a show that gets them to a 1-possession game or a win or something like that. I mean, that's when, you're right. A do or die, like miss it, you lose, make it, you win. That is a different situation. And obviously John and you come up with the numbers on that. But I do remember multiple times where Ant has locked into a zone and enabled this team to come back from double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter and usually surge ahead. And so what I find interesting about what you're saying is that it is a little bit different in terms of the way the defense is reacting because the stakes are different. And it is a little bit different in terms of the way his teammates are reacting because it's kind of a, we should still get in a position to get, ta-da. I think in these do or die situations, just before Ant hit or missed that bucket last night, he found Nas in the corner. Nas has never been that wide open in like a dozen games.
Yeah.
I mean, just so wide open. And that is one of the things you do. That's what, that's what LeBron James, Kevin Garnett,
Well, so I was literally just thinking about KG. So you have covered the Wolves for 35 years, close, whatever. And KG had the opposite narrative. The whole time he, to extend the comparison, he always tried to find Nas in the corner by drawing it and doing that. And, I was a kid at the time, but I remember that narrative. He didn't want to,
right?
Yeah. Right. So how do you have you thought about that? Like the juxtaposition of Ant and KG in those situations?
Well, just now I thought of it, but I also think that it's a matter of basketball. Just play fucking basketball. I mean, when you're on the court, do you think the best play is to rise up and repeat history and clank a do or die shot? Or do you think getting it to a wide open teammate? I tell you, he finds Jaden McDaniels a lot. He finds Nas. The point being, if you want to get better, the reps come from a couple of things. The reps come from seeing that other teammates have a better look. And there is this hero ball mentality, the Kobe mentality, whatever you want to call it, of I'm going to be the guy because it's my time in the clutch and I'm at the head of the pecking order. So it's my responsibility to do this. No, it's your responsibility to set your team up for the best chance of winning the game. That's what your responsibility is. If you're a great basketball player, you are a winning basketball player. The way you win is by making the decisions that give you the best chance of winning over and over and over again. That doesn't mean that you're going to be right all the time. It's going to mean that you will be making enough winning plays that it will be revealed what is the winning formula. And if it's that your teammates can't hit shots, then that's also good information. But if it's, I'm going to take all the shots, we have no idea what your teammates are going to be doing in that situation other than kind of assuming you're going to take the shot and therefore not being ready.
Is it okay that he doesn't understand that at 23?
No, because he has been in this situation over and over and over again. And one of these narratives that really bugs me, quite frankly, is how much he learns from the LeBrons and Steph Currys and Kevin Durant's of the world and soaking up all this knowledge and inheriting this championship pedigree. What has he learned? What did he learn from the World Cup and the Olympics? That you're the one that's supposed to take the shot, do or die? Well, maybe if you're Steph Curry, but LeBron James doesn't do that. And Kevin Durant even doesn't do that. I mean,
did they win their 23?
I don't know. I know.
LeBron,
yeah. LeBron.
I don't know. I'm not taking a hard stance. I don't, because again, I don't know.
I just don't like hero ball. And
let's talk about the process of what this is. I just want to put this up here because the problem I have with the process of this is it's 103 to 101. Milwaukee's up with 10.9 seconds left, and if it's me, and in my head and what I was expecting, said next to you, I'd said, get downhill.
Right?
They might just give you the two. Because they don't want to foul or try to go get the foul if they are guarding that. That was, kind of what my expectation was. And he ended up not doing that because Brooks and drop here and he gets back to his step back. And Finch says, that's kind of his shot, right? That's what Finch said after the game. I have no problem with it. That's what his shot is. I'm not sure this step back, watch, it's, multi-step, needing to take two to clear back to like 26, 27 feet. I'm not sure that's the same as the Houston shot. That is just 1-2 power off your right leg, get back to your left to shoot, that shot. That's what I think of as being Ant's step back there. I think that's a more difficult step back three that he took, which of course he's capable of. He's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. And, we're probably having a different conversation right now because we wouldn't have seen like the negative side of this, right? If he made it. I just don't know if that's the same thing. I don't think I'd like the process of going for a three there in general when you could have tried to get down. You're very good at getting to the basket, been getting to the line at a crazy clip over the last 3 games. I don't like the process there. And then when I'm thinking about he's found more success late in games while playing off of a specific action, and we talk about the J-Mac pass to him, the Nikhil pass to him there.
Right.
I think I would have liked to have a timeout there to have drawn it up. And I get Finch's other side of it. And maybe I'm doing the hindsight is 2020 sort of thing. But given that we know that Ant doesn't know exactly what to do or does not consistently do the quote unquote right thing there.
Right.
If I'm Finch, I think my process would change into being like, yeah, maybe we don't want them to put in a defensive lineup or be able to set their defense. But I know if I call a timeout, I can draw something up that we can run that will get us to this shot. Now, they tried to do that in the Memphis game and Ant went rogue, right?
Exactly.
Admittedly so. So I know I'm talking kind of out of both sides of my mouth, but I'm just saying like how I felt watching the game there live, watching it back this morning.
Right.
I just don't feel good about the process of how
I agree. I agree that Finch is vulnerable to the specific criticism you just made in that if you're relying on Ant to make the right decision, evidence-based is not on your side.
Mm-hmm.
I keep coming back to the idea that everybody is okay with what happened because of the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, if Ant hit that shot, I was perfectly willing to come on here this morning and rip this team from top to bottom for needing a desperation 3-pointer in the last second to beat a Milwaukee team that had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a season. This is a team that has demonstrated over now, 55 games, 56 games? I don't know what it is, but a good 60% of the season is over. And this team has demonstrated that it does not have the character and psychological makeup to be a team that will be a fearsome competitor deep into the playoffs. It just isn't. And that isn't something you fix in the last month of the season. That's something that's there. This team did not lose 3 games in a row the entire season last year. That's because they were locked in and they played a certain way and they had not had the type of success that they had now. And so they did not have that smugness of, oh, we'll be fine. In fact, they had a season much like this one in that they lost a lot of winnable games to teams, and it was a point of emphasis. It was a point of emphasis not to argue with the refs, and it was a point of emphasis not to take bad teams seriously. And they didn't. They were better at both of those things, aside from a blip with Ant and the refs mid-season last year. But essentially, they were mature, which was a theme coming in. This year, the theme was, let's try to figure out how to get everybody on the same page in the wake of the cap trade. So they're busy trying to make parts mesh together, and they have the proven success of last year in their minds, but they still haven't won jack shit. And so you've got a situation now where they win a few games in a row in really convincing fashion, and then they drop a few games in a row, and then they correct themselves by going, oh, we're better than that. And then they prove they are better than that. And then they let the foot off the gas and they play badly again because they don't have a dedication of purpose to being what they're supposed to be. They have the second highest payroll in the NBA. They have star power. They have longtime familiarity with 3 or 4 of the players together. They've got a good mesh of talent. They've got a coach that knows their personalities and tries to work them in certain ways. And maybe that's an issue too. The coach needs to start to change up a little bit. And they've also been kicked in the ass a couple of times. And correspondingly, played better after that happened. Well, after a while, you just have to say, we've got character issues with this team. We've got integrity issues in terms of how hard they play mentally as well as physically. There are two ways you need to compete on the court, and one is by keeping your focus, and the other is by keeping in shape.
Yeah, it's consistency, right? And in the breaks of inconsistency this season, seems like that's been the moments where the immaturity has snuck in. I know we're like kind of hot right now, but I want to let people know that we are going to be at Falling Knife Brewing Company next Thursday. Britt and I were going to do another live show at Falling Knife. The schedule for that is the live show will start at 7, but Britt and I will be there just kind of hanging out. I'll be setting up at 6 o'clock, and good time to just chat and see people. And it's been a while since we've done one of these shows at Falling Knife, so we'd love to see you there. The idea is we're doing it on Thursday, February 20th, the day before the All-Star break, or I guess the last day of the All-Star break. The Wolves' first game post break is Friday, the 21st. So it's kind of like a reset of where this is going to go for the final. What will that be? 25 games of the season. So really looking forward to that. Hanging out at Falling Knife. I know a lot of you listeners have been there to watch games throughout the season. I wish I was there for some of those. Obviously, we're at these covering the games, but these are a fun way to get to experience Falling Knife, and we'd love to see.
It's always great feedback, great questions, good
I'll take
time.
questions.
The enthusiasm is there. I look forward to these things because it social media also has a really interesting mix of really intelligent people and really stupid people that come at you in various ways. And the percentage of intelligence to tomfoolery at Falling Knife is much higher. And so, the level of, maybe it's, the whole face-to-face idea, you got to own what's coming out of your mouth.
No, but people legitimate. I mean, whether it's live when we're on the show and they ask questions or after the fact, really, yeah, honestly, like really good questions of things that, as much time as you and I spend thinking about this stuff, like, sometimes you miss the forest through the trees, and they're like, hey, well, what about this? There's been a bunch of times when we've done this and I've had conversation, with smart basketball people who are watching these games and caring about it, and curious of our perception on it. I'm really looking forward to it too, and appreciate you all, like, when you do take the opportunity to come out and support us. It's and Falling Knife. It's a very cool experience. So again, February 20th, 6 p.m. happy hour, 7 p.m. live show. We normally go for about an hour, and then we'll probably hang out for a bit after that as well. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and I was poking around this morning at just looking at some Wolves Thunder stuff, and I saw one that was Rudy Gobert more or less than 1.5 turnovers. I clicked on that initially. And was going to take the more on that, but then when I pulled up the Britt's diet over there, I was going to say more than 1.5 turnovers. That one's no longer on the board, so I had to switch. And my Wolves pick is Ant less than 11 3-pointers attempted. I think given the way that the Thunder guard him, and the pressure on the perimeter is going to force him off the line a bit, I think he will have single-digit 3-point attempts tonight. And then Lu Dort just has, will he get a steal or not? It's a goblin, so it's a little worse odds there. But so my two for this game are Dort gets a steal and Ant shoots less than 11 threes. If that happens, what the payout on that would be if you did $20, that would pay out 2.25.
What in the world are they thinking about? Lu Dort will not get a steal is pretty much what that bet is, right?
Yeah, it is. It's lower odds. It's so like when they do the little goblin thing, you don't get as much like juice on it, but you can't do that. So I think sometimes it's smart to like pick a goblin if you want to basically just be like, okay, that one's locked in. It's not great odds, like, because how's Lu Dort not going to get a steal? And then you kind of put it together with another pick, like the Rudy one I loved. Like, I'm pretty sure Rudy's gonna have 2 turnovers in this game, and Dort's gonna have a steal. I don't know, maybe that number will come back on later in the day. But sometimes it's just to pick two kind of simple ones. You don't
Right.
get caught up in 4 or 5 and one falling apart there. But yeah, that's what I like for this one tonight. And again, it can be $5. It doesn't need to be a big one, but it's fun to have something else, kind of on the games that you're going to be watching. It's prizepicks.com, prizepicks app. You can use the promo code Dane for a $50 sign up bonus when you make your first $5 lineup. I do want to talk about the Thunder in general, the Thunder matchup tonight. But maybe we should spend. I feel like I kind of cut us off a little bit.
No. I'm good either way. However you want to go.
All right. Well, just because I was talking about the Thunder, we'll loop back and after we talk about this and talk a little bit more about specifics from that game.
Okay.
I want to talk about the rookies playing and stuff like that. But I've watched a lot of the Thunder this week. I mean, this season and this week, and I think I've been doing this thing all year, as a lot of people have, maybe, about trying to find reasons to not pick the Thunder. Right? You start trying to susceptible this way or that way. And Britt, I'm just at the point where I wonder if we're like with this Thunder team, kind of like where we were before the Warriors won, the first time. And it was a different style of play. It wasn't, Steph was a different type of superstar than the Kobe's and Michaels and all that sort of stuff. And it seems funny to say now in hindsight, when everybody, obviously the Warriors earned a ton of respect and go down as one of the greatest dynasties, in NBA history. They will. And I'm not necessarily this is for sure going to be what the Thunder are, but I'm going to stop trying to look for reasons as to why they're not that, because what they're doing this season is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you watch the Thunder trying to find the nits. I'm watching the Thunder just because I love incredible basketball. And I mean, to just watch, it's like, an oil painting every night of just like, this is how you play basketball. I mean, this is when I talked before about team integrity. 1 through 12 knows what's going on the court, knows their role, knows how to play their role, knows when they're stepping outside their role, and if they do that, immediately gets back into what they do after they've been extended a little bit. It isn't like anybody on that team has any delusions of grandeur. They understand that SGA is the straw that stirs the drink and can do whatever he wants, but that everybody else is pretty damn good if they stay in their lane and combine to do things. It's just their team defense is phenomenal. And they have not had two of their best defenders on the floor for most of the season.
Right.
I've got a stat here. Right now, the Thunder are allowing 104.2 points per 100 possessions. The Clips are second at 108.3. That's a difference of 4.1 points. NBA.com only went back to like the 95-96 season. But the two closest to that 4.1 advantage were the 67 and 15 Spurs in 15-16 with 2.6 points better than the next best team. And the 66 and 16 Celtics of 07-08 were 2.4 points better than any team. They are a dominant defensive team. The record with Hartenstein in the lineup is 30-3. When Hartenstein, SGA, and Dort are on the court, they give up 98.6 points in 502 minutes. When Caruso, Hartenstein, and SGA are on the floor, they give up 81.4 points per 100 possessions. It's only 63 minutes, but their net rating is plus 35.7, and they're 14-0.
And overall,
that's cartoon shit.
Yeah. Well, and overall, they have the best net rating ever.
Right.
I mean, of compared
Over 13.
Well, and the thing, like, back to like the dynasty thing and comparing them to the Warriors and stuff, is when you look at the point differentials, how much they're beating teams by, how much more efficient their defense is compared to the rest of the league, as you just highlighted, how much more. I mean, their offense is almost equally impressive.
Right.
Yeah, because it's the Wolves, what the Wolves were last year defensively, but if the Wolves were good at offense, like really good at offense.
Right.
And that is combining to create this deficit or disparity comparatively to their opponents in the rest of the league that rivals, or in many ways is better than the 95-96 Bulls, the seven, the Lakers, those teams, the Celtics, those teams.
Yeah, and they actually remind me of the
champions.
Spurs. Right.
Sure. It's
they
teams that
remind me
are
of the
champions.
Duncan, Robinson, Manu, Parker, Bowen Spurs.
Yeah. And you mentioned like the integrity and the style of their play. And what I think of when you say that is, it's like their style of play offensively is something that builds off of their best player's best skill. Mm-hmm. And like their offense, right, when you talk about it compared to an oil painting or whatever, it's this constant like flex and release of drive and kick that it creates all this space and openness for their players to hit threes or have space to be able to go score themselves. But it's that initial drive into like 13 feet, being able to get there and play off of it. Well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best in the league at getting to 13, 14 feet and scoring from there. So it's like, it's this style of play that is like, you go do your thing that you are the very best at. And then when it's taken away, it's going to open up what we do best around you. Right. And when we talk about, and Shai's older, and I'm not saying Ant can't get to this point. My point is with the Wolves is it's like, they need to find what Ant is best at repeatedly and how to put a roster together and a style of play together that builds off of that. And the Thunder have been building this for a while. I mean, this has been, they've had this group intact and playing this way, since Daignault and Shai have been there.
Right. And then they went out and got Hartenstein and Caruso, who are just absolutely perfect. It's like if somebody made a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and you know what the shapes of that 1,000 pieces look like? They look like gerrymandered congressional maps. And so essentially you've got Hartenstein and Caruso just happen to fit perfectly into this oil painting puzzle. It's just, it blows my mind that, when I mentioned before about, Caruso, Hartenstein, SGA giving up 81.4 points per, which is like ridiculous defense. Yeah. That leaves out Lou Dort and Jay Will, who are great defenders. It's ridiculous. I went back and looked at the fourth quarter in the Miami game last night. Miami had a 21-point lead going into the fourth quarter.
On 32-8, right?
24-0 in 5 minutes and 47 seconds of the fourth quarter. They suddenly went from down 21 to up 3 before the quarter was even half over. Miami finally scored when Bam set a pick on I think it was Isaiah Joe that flipped him off onto the side. And he fell down and had to run back up. They fed it back to Bam. He almost was able to contest the shot, and Bam hit a 3. Otherwise, I think they'd still be shut out for most of the quarter. It was incredible. And Miami, of course, has this vaunted culture of their own of, high competition and everything. The Thunder just wiped them out. They were 3 for 18 in that period. They had 6 turnovers. There is a team. If you want to have a team that can afford to say, well, we'll win in the end, all right, we're down 21 going into the fourth quarter, but we'll take care of that now, So
I didn't watch the Miami game because I was going on when we were at the Wolves game last night. But But I did watch yesterday their two previous games against the Pelicans and the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies game was wildly impressive to me. It was fun. They tried to put Jalen Wells on Shea in the same way that Jalen Wells just face guarded Ant, and that just completely befuddled the Ant and the Wolves offense. Well, Shea just cooked it. He just was like, well, if you're like, there's an advantage to me of you being this exposed and playing off of that. And he's, again, as I think probably a product of being 3 years older than Ant, has learned more of these things and how to play off of it. And I bring up the Memphis thing because I'm just thinking about, what is the delta between the Thunder and not only the Wolves, but the rest of the entire rest of the Western Conference. And Memphis is the 2 seed, right now. And I think, as a chance, at least, I think will certainly be probably the 2 or the 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Thunder played them. The Thunder were on a back-to-back. They played them in Memphis. Was this Saturday, I think, and completely just dismantled them. And so I'm just wondering, how much better are they than the rest of the Western Conference?
Mm-hmm.
I looked it up, and it's plus money to pick them to win the West and go to the finals.
Right.
I feel like that is a good bet. I don't understand why you would take the field over the Thunder at this point. The one I am holding out on, and it's because I think it's the one team in the NBA who has a better player than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And Jokic, and I'm fascinated. I would love to see that be.
And they're playing extremely well right now.
And it taps into what we thought and were correct about being the Thunder's weakness in previous seasons, right? Of not being able to guard that, a big team or a big center in that sort of way. But it's going to be fascinating to see them play Denver when they do have both Hartenstein and Chet out there, because they can do the same thing the Wolves did to them, where they can put Hartenstein on Jokic, like the Wolves put Cat on Jokic, and then they can have Chet lurk off of Denver. Still is playing a non-shooter at all times, you know, and be able to play that way. So from a matchup standpoint, even though I respect Jokic and Denver and what they're doing, it just is. It feels like they probably even have answers for that. So my whole point of bringing this up is, I think the Thunder are underrated right now.
Right.
And
what I would say is the team that would worry me even now, if Davis can get healthy, is Dallas, because Gafford, Lively, and Davis are all really skilled, and they're all, when healthy, all of them are hurt. When they're all healthy, they have that kind of grit and activity around the paint that is the one weakness the Thunder have most of the time. Is the Thunder can account for one really skilled player around the paint. But what hurt them in the playoffs was Luka, who's not small himself. So you do one of the things that I was thinking about that always made Luka so dangerous is that bigs have to come up on him, because even if the man is on him, he could shoot right over that, normal wing defender. He's 6'7", and he's got a high arching shot. He shoots over bigs pretty easily anyway. But the idea that a big doesn't come out on him. So I think Hartenstein and Caruso were taken to combat Dallas. I mean, you want somebody who can throttle Kyrie and not have to, exhaust Shea. Throw Caruso on him. Sure. If you want to make sure that the wave of bigs doesn't run you over, get somebody like Hartenstein, who does not get run over, period, to play with Chet, who does get run over. But I do think Davis, Lively, Gafford, Kyrie, Clay playing at the top of their game, that would be a hell of a series. I think that would be Thunder in 6. I don't think we'll see it because I think it's going to be really hard for all three of those guys to be healthy at the same time. And I also think that Dallas is diseased because of the fallout of the trade. So,
yeah, and I'm with that. And I said when we talked about it on here, I was intrigued, thought the trade was bad, but intrigued by Dallas in the immediate,
right.
Which is, I think, just the fair.
And you're correct. I mean, look at what Davis did when he was healthy the first game and a half back.
For sure, just 1.5 game. I would, a weakness I would see in that series for Dallas is one creator.
Yeah, and the bench.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is like, I think, and we've even have seen this against Kyrie against the Wolves when he is able to always be guarded by a Jaden McDaniels or Anthony Edwards or Nickeil Alexander, that depth of perimeter defenders and that are locked in and ball containing that night. It's you could make it harder. Kyrie's obviously like incredible. I just think like Oklahoma City has the depth of wing defenders there to make it difficult for Kyrie. And if Kyrie can't get going, I know Dallas's goal in a OKC Dallas game or series would be to win like 93-91. Right. I wonder about Dallas's ability to get to 93.
And that's fair because let's face it, to beat Kyrie, you just need excellent gap defense. His handle is so good. He finds seams. He breaks down defenses with speed and guile. And that's gap coverage. Luka's just strong as hell and has a very short dribble, but he's not, it isn't gap. He solves gaps with his passing. And so essentially what you need is brawn. And that's why when you had the gap guy Kyrie and the brawn guy Luka, and you have these other guys who can hit corner threes and get lobs, right? That was a fearsome team. And that actually was a really good series. And I think it taught OKC a lot. And I also think that it taught Presti a lot, and he went out and got exactly what was needed to caulk those seams. And that's what's made them so unbeatable. When those guys, like I said, I mean, they're 14-0 when Caruso and Hartenstein are playing alongside each other, and 30-3 with Hartenstein. That's not too shabby. What is it? That's 90.9% winning percentage. That's not too bad.
It's
that's like 88, 70-7 would be 74-7. I don't have no idea. Right. It's definitely good. The best winning percentage in NBA history.
And to that end, I guess to bring it back to the Wolves, it would be a real accomplishment to beat them, tonight or in any of these upcoming games. And I am, as much as we were, dogging on them in the first segment here, like the Wolves do have another gear. Frustratingly so.
That's why we're dogging on them.
Yeah, right.
And have three other gears.
Yeah.
They do. Look, the reason I don't rip Rudy Gobert in these types of situations is because Rudy Gobert is trying really hard and trying to make everything about his game complete almost all the time. His errors are due to fundamental things like hand-eye coordination, and he just has some blatant weaknesses that are genetic to his skill set. Ant does not have that. If Ant could lock in the way Gobert locks in most every game, he would be a phenomenally better player. And now, obviously, the difference again is Gobert did have a franchise that built its entire existence around him for 9 years, and then came to a team that used what he did best in those 9 years and blended it. And has not had that advantage thus far. So I'm not saying Gobert is better than Ant. I am saying that you can tell the guys who are failing because they're not capable of succeeding in certain ways. I can't think of a way that Ant is not capable of succeeding. I just can't think of one.
Well, it would be the immaturity and still mentally developing his
Exactly.
understanding of the game. Physically, yes. I mean, incredible shooter, incredible athlete, incredible all those things, and showing signs of getting smarter. And
has that gear, has that extra gear that, hey, I'm going to shut this guy down. Hey, I'm going to score now. But that only happens when you have the momentum. I mean, he was 10 for 32 when he shot that shot at the end of the game. He had missed 22 shots. And and he could say, yeah, I'm going to crank it up now. But even Ant, who has these gears that no one else has, needs the rhythm of the previous 47 minutes of maybe him playing 36 of those minutes in a rhythm to know that this is my time to take the shot. And that's where the maturity comes in, knowing on the night, for whatever reason, I mean, he didn't have it from 2, he didn't have it from 3. And, some of it was, I think he came in mentally flaccid in terms of not thinking that they were going to lose to a team with no Giannis and no Dane. But anyway,
I thought it was going to be the Hawks game. Let me just play one of the clips from him last night in the locker room afterwards. I think kind of highlights of his supreme and I think warranted largely competency. Here's Ant.
Just struggling in the course of the game. You don't try to adjust your game to how you're playing on a certain
For what? For what? I mean, I ain't been working for no reason. Like, I'm not finna try, I ain't making no shots. I'm finna try to put my head down and go to the rim. For what? It's gonna go in. It just didn't go in tonight. We'll be all right.
That's the mentality, and that's not, that's not changing. That's who he is.
It can be modified. It can change to the extent that, look, if you have a 75% chance of tying the game versus a 35% chance of winning the game, and you say, I'm going to win the game, that's like cats. I go after 40-60 balls as well as 50-50 balls. That's just idiocy. You don't do that. You play to win. And if overtime,
I'm just saying, dude, he does not think in terms of percentages.
No, I understand.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying is I don't think that's going to change.
And I don't think he has to think in terms of this percent, but I think he does have to say, what's my best chance of having this team win the game?
No.
And if it doesn't go beyond me doing something extraordinary, then that's immaturity. And that will change because I think that he will grow. I just think that the growth process is pretty stubborn. And I think that last year to this year he's definitely seen a step in terms of his skill set. Yeah. I mean, his skill set, the 3-point shot is an amazing weapon that he has added that has taken the entire league by surprise. But what that should have opened up, the dude should be averaging like 8 assists, just finding people all the time. And, it could be that he will find the better mixture. And that is the next step to maturity. But what is getting in the way of that right now is, I don't need to do that. Everybody needs to do that. It's basketball. It's the NBA. You're great, but you're not going to win 1-on-5 all the time. That's a bad percentage for you, buddy.
No, I mean, it's fair. And I keep bringing up the age and I keep bringing up the learning curve because that's
all we have. The lack of ballast. I mean, you're right. I mean, the more I think about it, I was okay with Finch's reasoning when he said, we would have called a timeout to him. So just put another brain alongside his own thought process for a minute. Mike Conley's not on the floor.
Yeah.
Even Dante DiVincenzo's not on the floor.
Sure.
I'm not even sure Joe Ingles was on the floor. Maybe he was. But I mean, essentially,
he wasn't. No.
Who was there to check him? Who was there to say, hey, or like, start the screen?
Well, the vet on the floor is Rudy, who's not like a trusted
just
source
can't
of
do it. You
offensive
just can't
wisdom.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right, exactly. Let's I want to because I want to talk about your Jaylen Clark article, which I really one of my favorite things I've read from you this season. I'd recommend it's evergreen. You can go read it over at Min Post that published yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that. Just really Britt laying out the kind of like the crazy happenstance of Jaylen Clark getting the opportunity and then what he did to run with it. And I loved the Nas and Jaden comparison pieces that you made in that, but also in last night's game. I mean, Jaylen Clark was the sixth man, seventh man was Rob Dillingham, eighth man was Terrence Shannon Jr. The other guy who came off the bench was Joe Ingles. So three rookies and 37-year-old Joe Ingles played last night, and just last night alone, the two best were Terrence Shannon Jr. and Joe Ingles there. But I want to focus on the three rookies who played there, mostly noting that Terrence Shannon Jr. had his first like really good,
right.
I mean, good NBA,
Really good, really solid, and it was I think a really good start. A good first rotation is very important to all these guys.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And we were talking about it during the game. Initially, it seemed like a little bit confused as to who he was guarding, and and that sort of thing. But all the guards looked confused as to who they were guarding the whole time because they weren't guarding a specific player. I didn't like that.
Yeah, that match up on the fly business. I mean, why do that against an inferior team?
I think it's just trying to stop the fear of a team running you and in transition, but it led to cockeyed matchups.
A lot of confusion, right?
Because we were talking about it the whole time. I mean, throughout the game, I'm like, we were trying to talk about like who is Jaden guarding in this game? Who is Edwards? Because I always do that at the beginning of the game, the matchup thing, and talk to you there, and they weren't guarding consistent players. It was Nas was guarding Brook Lopez, and Rudy Gobert was on Andre Jackson Jr. It was the first time they're kind of doing a little bit of that Cat Gobert thing, right? Like the four guards the five. They got away from it in the second half because it wasn't working, but it was just this weird scramble of the guards guarding whoever they were guarding, and I thought that messed up Terrence Shannon Jr. a little bit at the beginning, and also didn't really allow Jaylen Clark to get into a rhythm.
Right.
Because I just think if you're going to play Jaylen Clark right now, given his other shortcomings, you got to let him do what he's best at defensively, which I think is guarding the point of attack. And they're having him guard Taurean Prince. He's just kind of guarding a guy out there.
Kuzma was also on.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't.
Right.
I didn't love the process of how the guards were guarding. But.
And we had a disagreement about that, and you were right because, especially in retrospect, and your reason for him not. I mean, part of the reason he was bad was because he's really hard on himself and he missed some wide open bunnies and got on him. But another reason was that he wasn't impacting the game the way he's become accustomed to impacting the game.
Yes.
And he began to strain. He began to press. And that makes total sense when, the guy can turn into a pumpkin at any moment. And he knows that more than anybody. And so when the midnight hour and the Cinderella story is approaching, you are working frantically to avoid it. And it would have been nice if Finch had put him in a position, had recognized what you recognized and said, hey, this is who, we need to mentally protect this guy by putting him in a position to succeed. I think this may have been a case where Finch had a little bit too much trust in his maneuverability and flexibility. Let's put him on Kuzma. Let's put him on Prince. And,
I just think you sick him on the ball right now.
And
then maybe off of that, he gets a rhythm and find that. But sorry, my reasoning for bringing that up was I thought Terrence Shannon Jr. did a good job of like a little bit discombobulated first 3 or 4 possessions defensively, but settled into a rhythm both defensively and offensively. And frankly, has a lot of the like, don't mess up, do your things that you do energy that we've been lauding Jaylen Clark for having over the past 2 weeks. And I find that extremely encouraging. And with Terrence, I think there are different ways that you can use him than Jaylen Clark, both defensively and certainly offensively. I mean, Jaylen would openly admit that Terrence can do a lot more offensively than the Jaylen can. And I just I don't know, we're in this weird window right now where DiVincenzo, Conley, and Randall are out, and Ant has missed some time here and there. So these guys are all getting this opportunity, and it's those opportunities will probably go away once players come back. But it's important for us to really, take in, and for Finch and for Tim Conley to take in, what these guys are and what these guys aren't and what they might be able to be. These couple weeks are important for when this summer comes around and you
Absolutely
have a decision
agree.
to make on Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid and Julius Randle, as the roster is probably going to just necessarily need to change. And I think it's just it's very encouraging that both of those guys have shown signs over the last few weeks, even if Jaylen Clark in these last two games has been more pumpkin than Savannah.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. But I don't want to take away from what Jaylen did, and I don't want to just tell you, but like, tell me about your story. But like, I really liked the piece, as I said, about that you highlighted in your story, which was keen observation that, I'm in the locker room too. I should have put it together, where it's Jaylen Clark and then Naz Reid is the locker to his left, and Jaden McDaniels is the locker
One
to his
over
right.
from Garza, right?
Yeah. Garza's in there too, but right by him there, and it's that kind of wing of the locker room. And both Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid, started with pretty humble beginnings in this league, and through grit and work and understanding of who they are at the moment has really allowed both Jaden and Naz to flourish as pieces on this team and flourish individually. As I think you said in your piece, Jaden made like $9 million or something on his rookie deal.
Right.
Naz made $6 or $7 million in his first 4 years in the league. And, Jaden has since signed a $130 million extension, and, Naz has already received a raise and set to receive another one this summer. It's such a good roadmap to have internally within your locker room if you are a guy like Jaylen Clark, who started his career on a two-way like Naz Reid did, or if you're Terrence Shannon Jr. and Terrence was 27th pick, I think Jaden was 28th pick,
Right.
The cheaper rookie deal, you got to do something on that rookie deal so as to, if you want to come out of your time in the league like very rich,
Right.
be able to show it. And I just think I thought that was a really awesome example by you, and what a gift for Jaylen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. to have that. And I think Jaden and Naz both being guys who willingly dole out some of that wisdom to show their way.
That's what I was going to follow up on, is that you're right about the comparisons are kind of cool. What struck me and what made me kind of think about that in terms of needing it in the story is that the three of them move back and forth between being equals when they're kind of giving each other bullshit. They're kind of clowning with each other.
Yeah.
Clark has the ability to come back at these guys that, like I was giving Nas some shit because he didn't do one more rotation meeting to him because he hit 4 out of 6 threes. It was just kind of like this kind of dry, like I should get the ball over Naz Reid on that rotation. And at the same time, there's a knowledge that he's being mentored by these guys so obviously. And before that even starts, Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels found each other, worked when everyone else when Cat's in the Riviera or whatever, they're in Target Center. They're working out in the summertime with each other and whoever assistant coach or pickup guy that they can find,
grinding, man.
And they are grinding and they are improving. The steps get taken every summer. And in the course of that, I mean, Nas just he basically said, Jay's my best friend the other night. And a question you asked him, actually. He's my best friend. I mean, and the reason you get to be best friends with somebody, and the reason it happens is because you go through this kind of grind together and you both succeed, and you know that you've succeeded because both of you have the same goal, and 2 is better than 1 in those lonely, hot times in the gym when you are trying to get better, and you have an example in front of you of somebody you know is getting better because you see it as you play with them, and you know you're helping him get better, and vice versa. And then this kid comes along who is ready to be exactly the same thing, is the same piece of clay you were 3 years ago. And you go, hey, I kind of like this kid. And he's only 2 years younger than Nas and 1 year younger than Jayden. He was 3 years in college.
He's only 2 months younger than Ant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, he's got that kind of maturity, which is actually one of the reasons he fell in the draft, including the ruptured Achilles. But he was 21 years old, which is old for the draft. And so it is kind of fun to watch them. And whoever did locker assignments, it was a pretty smart move. Minot's over on the other end next to Na, which isn't bad, but he's also next to Rudy and Ant, which, for a guy like Minot, actually, I don't know who Minot lines up with, who would be the best. Probably Joe Ingles would be the best mentor for Minot because he has that same kind of irreverence for everything.
Right.
They might be able to connect on that level.
Not to make this a Thunder podcast, but what you're describing in the summertime and in the kind of coming of age together is very with Jayden and Nas and those other guys is very similar to what's been going on in Oklahoma City over the past 3 or 4 years. Like Aaron Wiggins was the Jaylen Clark of the Thunder a couple of years back. He was and years. I mean, in years in his, and now he had a 40-point game. A couple of, not the different styles of player.
Sure.
I don't think Jaylen Clark should ever have 40 in a game, but like just grew in a group, and I think that's part of the Thunder superpower right now. And I think it's part of the reason why we do shortchange them sometimes and look for reasons, because you go, all right, well, Aaron Wiggins isn't that special. Lou Dort isn't that special. Kendrick Williams isn't that special, but they are more special because they've done this together and like grown on top of each other. And I think the Wolves, though they have, they've taken a different route to roster construction and went and bought with picks,
right?
A Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo through another like asset exchange there. The Wolves also have this young group of guys that really reminds me of Shea and J-Dub and all those dudes in Oklahoma City over the last 4 years. And I think every deadline's like, oh my God, why didn't Presti go buy somebody or go do that? It's because he believes more in the integrity of this group that they have right now and believes that is greater than the opportunity cost of spending the assets to go change that out. And I would love to see the Wolves continue to hold on to that, because I think that's going to be an important thing in the coming decade or 5 years of the NBA in this new collective bargaining agreement world. Having guys like Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe that you get on your under contract for nothing, and then you sign them even once they show you something on a discount because they're willing to take an extension, with that team. There's an opportunity here with the Wolves that they have similarly that, don't want to do like the whole KD thing, but I don't want to see the Wolves lose that at the cost of getting an aging star player or any star player, really.
Well, that is the Tim Connolly method. Tim Connolly has a blueprint. He went out and got Aaron Gordon. He went out and got Rudy Gobert. I'm not saying he is totally a homegrown guy, totally, but he is somebody who he makes no bones about the idea that he drafts for character as importantly as skill to some extent.
Yeah.
You need to have both. If you have only one of those two things, you're not going to get drafted by Conley. You need to be a really high character individual. And so that builds into that. If you're going to have faith in a low income player, that player has to be so self-motivated that they are doing the things in the middle of the summer to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that, Conley has basically been trying to do that over and over. Now, what I will say is the other part of that, though, is skill set meshing.
Sure.
I mean, Hartenstein and Caruso, like I said, were puzzle pieces. Rudy Gobert was not a puzzle piece that was very good fit. And Randall is not at all. And I understand the reasons behind both of those deals. And I'm not saying
I take your point, though. Yeah,
and the Gobert trade certainly is a success by any measure. You get to the Western Conference Finals. I'm not sure the extension will be looked at in the same way, but I do think that trade was a good trade. But the Thunder have a through line culture. They have the strongest culture in the NBA right now. The Celtics have a good culture. The Heat have always had a good culture.
The Celtics too. That's consistency of players and adding
Adam Hauser. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sam Hauser.
Yeah. That's funny because I was going to correct you, but then I forgot his name.
I got it in time. Who knows when the synapses will fly?
Right. It is a copycat league, right? Say that all the time of like style of play and the style of play.
Right now, wing depth of skill is clearly ascendant.
And maybe just having your young guys come up together and being a team that's focused on players in their 20s and maximizing what they can be rather than squeezing the last bit of juice out of like the Sixers method with Paul George, which that's proven to not have any juice. But I there's a temptation when you have a star player of Anthony Edwards' caliber to go and get it all and get it all now so as to maximize his peak. And the Wolves have done that already with Rudy Gobert, and I'm sure we'll be tempted again to do that, whether it's Durant or whoever, in this summer or in future seasons. And I just would highlight the way the Thunder have done it, and that threads of that are possible to incorporate here
and the Celtics and Denver. And, you can go down the list pretty much.
And the counter examples are Phoenix blowing up and Philly and those sort of
whatever iteration Brooklyn kept trying for a while. They did it with KG and Pierce, and then they did it with Kyrie and KD. Let's go for a third here. Let's see. So it's like the Knicks have done it relatively well at the moment. Their haul has worked out. But the Grizzlies actually are another team that has done it. You know who the Grizzlies are going to draft right away. They have a type, and sometimes it doesn't work. A David Roddy has to go, but he was a Grizzly. You could tell at the draft that he was a Grizzly.
100%.
And so it is culture matters and patience matters. It opens up two lines of inquiry. I think we want to talk about the second one more than the first one. I don't think Rudy Gobert fits with the future of the Wolves. And so 2 years after this, or 3 years after this one, actually, is maybe a cultural drag that may have to be considered. That's not what I want to talk about, though. I want to talk about Dillingham, who in some ways, he had another bad game last night, and it was a very ill-timed bad game because they really needed him. They needed him to be a point guard last night, and Finch, wasted no, and he wasn't. Again, it was a Chris Finch mode of he's criticizing by stating facts, and it wasn't like he was terrible. It just we needed him to do X, Y, and Z, and he wasn't able to do it.
which
and
was to
all
be
that.
to the X, Y, and Z that he said. Sorry, I don't have the clip, but was to put pace into the game, was to be, I think he said, a pair of steady hands like Joe. Well, it was actually, you asked him about Joe, and he was like, we needed a pair of steady hands. We needed to be able to get into pick and roll and move the ball. And then you didn't even ask about Rob. He goes, that's actually what we needed from Rob to be able to do, plus putting in, pace and being the scorer that he can be. It's
and it made a huge difference. I mean, you could see as soon as Ingles came into the game, old creaky Joe Ingles, all of a sudden, people were being found on the pick and roll. Rob was not finding pick and roll. The pick and roll situations were in front of him. All he had to do was go and execute them. And he was busy he was playing like Randall, for God's sake. Bring the double team so I can whip it or shoot it, And it was a knuckleheaded performance. And yeah, he's a rookie, but he needs to demonstrate why he was taken in the lottery as a point guard. And you and I were talking, you asked if, he should get more minutes. And I was a little pissed off at the time. So I said, no, he probably should, because he needs the development. But what I said to you at that time was, he can't do anything other than toggle back and forth between playmaking and scoring right now. There's no blend in his game. And that's what this team needs right now, is a blended. They need him to seize situations. He's too busy trying to refine these parallel tracks without blending them. And that's somebody who's a little bit overmatched as a teenager who weighs 165 pounds in the NBA. But that is something that needs to happen sooner rather than later if Conley and DDV are going to continue to be out. Other than that, then you literally have to play creaky Joe Ingles and scramble on defense to overcome his terrible, terrible slowness at that end of the court.
Well, I think the optimistic way to look at it is, can you show Rob what Joe did, in the second quarter,
right,
when he came in? And just to fast forward before rewinding, Joe Ingles, he played the last 9 minutes of the second quarter, and at the end of it had not made a shot, but had, I think it was 5 rebounds and 4 assists. And he checked into the game when the Wolves were playing apathetically and the ball wasn't moving and all those things. And the score was 30-44 when Joe Ingles checked in for the first time into the game. And after Ingles checked in, they were moving the ball better, and they went on a 20-7 run to close the half. And then so at halftime, it's Wolves 50, Bucks 51. Not with him making any of his own shots, but undeniably, if you watch that second quarter, that comeback was a product of the ball being in Ingles' hand, running pick and roll, finding Rudy Gobert, making quick decisions to find an open Naz Reid or Jaden McDaniels or whoever it might have been. And, Joe's not long for the rotation or the league at this time. And, maybe he can help here at the end of the season, but it's a representation of what they need Rob to do. And I think Rob is getting caught in the confusion. I get this, of being like, okay, you need me to be that, but you also want me to be aggressive to find my shot, because clearly you need another scorer and an offensive initiator with no Randall, no DiVincenzo, no Conley out there. And to me, that's just been kind of the story of Rob's season, is confusion about what his role is at a given time, or what they're wanting out of him. You know what I'm saying? Like at the beginning of the year, it was just, he was so like, I'm just a point guard, not looking for a shot at all. And he's spraying it around. You think of that first game that he came into, and he's finding all his teammates open. And then at other times he's looking, being overly aggressive later in the season, being overly aggressive, looking for his own shot. And the shot isn't going in that much, and the turnovers are spiking. I think Rob has been in a difficult role, obviously, this season, of just what his minutes are, if he's in or out of the rotation. Hurt his ankle twice, that cost him to miss a lot of games. And that part of it just hasn't clicked in together, but I would say it hasn't clicked in together yet. It's much like we're talking about Ant at 23 and this late game stuff. Like, it's not fair for us to just be like, this is what he's done every time we've seen him. Thus, it will always be that way. We know enough about sports and maturing and growing that you can have been one thing one season when you were 20 and something completely different when you're
Right.
24. And I just hope that, Rob has the patience to understand that, because this team needs that. This team needs Rob Dillingham now, but more importantly, needs him a couple years from now when Mike Conley's 37 as well,
Right.
But he's a little caught in it at the moment.
And Joe Ingles, who did he activate? He activated the guy who was motivated the entire game. He activated Rudy Gobert. Dillingham, with more experience, would understand, and he did look for, to be fair to him, there were a couple of times where they ran pick and roll with Gobert, and he tried to get it to him. But he was not playing with a motivated group, and Ingles understood where the strengths of his personnel were. Right. And Dillingham doesn't have the luxury of building in that context into his game when he's on the court right now. He's playing play-by-play. He's not playing, here's the chalkboard, what do I have in front of me? That's the way Ingles just plays naturally now because he's been in the league so long.
It's the only way he can, yeah.
Yeah, and so Dillingham's coming in going, all right, a guy's on me. Here comes another guy with a double. I've got to do X. And maybe I'm not able to do that. Or, and also, by the way, my teammates are not really functioning at 100%. They don't have the integrity of effort right now. And so that especially is going to hurt a undersized rookie point guard thrown into the deep end really in context was a very important game for the Wolves last night. I mean, they needed that win. And so he was put in a situation where he did not succeed. He was called out for it, which I don't disagree with, but I do agree with you that a little perspective is necessary, even as you're calling it out, which is that he needs to, just the way Ant needs to be shown that this method is not working, you need to be able to blend your skills. You need to be able to maybe just trust your instincts. Yeah. I mean, that's, again, we harken back to that Jaylen Clark piece. This is a guy that just trusts his instincts. And he was a sponge at UCLA, obviously. He was a sponge with the Iowa Wolves. Dillingham didn't have 3 years in a college program. He came off the bench for college power, and he had no G League experience. He sat on the bench and watched. And so there's a different dynamic happening here. In addition to the fact he's 19 and Clark is 22. Those are big 3-year difference.
Yeah. No, it's it would be one of the great wins, I think, of the rest of the season for like long term is a Dillingham stretch like Clark had, in his own way, right? Like
exactly. Yep.
What can you be in the best version of yourself? And I don't know. I feel like those opportunities are dwindling now with, Conley and DiVincenzo likely to come back, sometime maybe in February, whatever, after the All-Star break. And is Rob Dillingham in the rotation when this team's healthy again? I kind of think no. I mean, not if Jaylen Clark's going to be the ninth man or Terrence Shannon Jr. I mean, it's going to go back to probably being what it was, which was a frustratingly small role,
Well, we are again back to the Wolves have made this bed. Everybody from the top to the bottom, from the Conley making the trade before preseason to, Finch deciding familiarity was better than development in terms of 8-man rotation or bust, to Randall taking time to integrate, to Ant, Rudy, you can think of each player on the team.
Right.
And this is going to be a disappointing season, barring some, miraculously positive thing where they win a playoff series or two. They are going to make the playoffs, and they are probably going to bow out in the first round. That would be I would imagine that the statistical probability at this particular time, much less than what they had before. But
to defy that, you have a great last 25 games, and so many of the things that we're talking about right here
exactly
today.
Finish strong.
Yeah, and it's a tough.
But how do you finish strong? See, that's what Finch is thinking. Let's get to 50 wins. Let's get the 5 seed. Let's beat the 4 seed on the road.
Right.
And, they have the second highest payroll in the NBA. They need the pressures on those guys to maximize in this season. Now, can you split the difference? Probably not. I don't think this team has given itself enough leeway.
Right.
And I think, in a month, we should be talking about how they want to approach the rest of the season because, championship or bust will hurt the 25-26 season if it does not produce the right momentum.
I think that's we'll see. See what happens tonight. And a rough little stretch in the schedule right after the All-Star break, but then it gets light in March.
Don't be tearing your head out, your hair out if it's like 31-29 after 60 games, because the competition is and what's crazy is the competition really hasn't mattered.
That's true. Well, that's why I even think about these Thunder games.
Washington, that's a loss.
The Atlanta game was a win, but similarly messy the last. Yeah, it's they're a team still very much finding their way, and we're entering the All-Star break, so it's the time is of the essence, and it's time to bounce back and have these holes that you're talking about that are able to be papered over, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to watch tonight and watch them play the Thunder a few times here, coming up, and the Lakers and the Rockets right after the break as well. Never a boring.
And at the very least, if I were having to buy tickets, I'd buy the Thunder. I would love, to watch that team play. Yeah. is just an aesthetic pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're going to have that fun tonight. And, we're going to have that fun. Is it the first game back or is it Houston the first game back?
Oh, I think Houston is it goes. So it's Thunder tonight.
And then Houston and then the Thunder twice, right?
The Thunder, back to back. One at Market Center, one at OK.
Yeah.
Back literally Sunday and Monday. Yeah, that's weird.
But still, it's going to be, it's going to be.
And it's going to be fun to maybe beat them. Like they have a chance to play.
They have a chance to win one game.
Turn it up. Yeah. Sure, but whatever. The Wolves are not incapable of playing with anybody. They aren't.
Right.
They do have Anthony Edwards, who, as much as we're dogging on the late game stuff, there has been scoring incredibly and is shooting incredibly, and it's even hard to have some of these conversations because you don't want to just be negative guy pointing at that when all these other good things he's doing are happening. But it's just they need, unfortunately, to be the team with the second highest payroll and achieving the goals that they set out to do. They actually need more than Anthony Edwards, who is already doing so much for them. And I'm just interested to see him step up to the challenge tonight, and see if they can send them off to the All-Star break on a more positive note. I'm not ruling that out.
To be clear, if somebody doesn't know the context of, our podcasts or my writing or whatever in general, the idea that Anthony Edwards is not one of the 15 best players in the NBA I am totally acknowledge and literally enjoy on a thrice weekly basis, if not more, the beauty of his game. Right. But our job is to figure out how this team is better or worse. What are the ways? And right now, recently, he's been giving examples both ways.
Sure.
When he's been, if they had had stomped the Bucks and he had gotten 40 for the fourth straight game, our narrative would have been totally different. It's just you have to, whatever is in front of you. I don't want to preface every criticism I have of Ant by saying, and by the way, the guy is just phenomenal. We are blessed to have him and see him. I mean, that's built in. Mm-hmm. My bar for criticizing Ant is high because he wants it to be high and because it can be even higher. He can be what a lot of people think he is now. He can get to the point where he is one of the 5, 4, 3 best players in the NBA. That's an amazing bar. If you're being spoken about in the same sentences as Jokic and Doncic and SGA, you were in a stratosphere. He's not there yet. And if he ever gets there, we'll be there too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to wrap it. Just for listeners, I know we're well into the podcast here, but Kyle and I are going to do an episode tomorrow after the Wolves Thunder game, and we'll kind of put a bookend on the pre All-Star break portion of the season. I'm going to take off the next week over All-Star break until the live event that Britt and I will be doing at Falling Knife that night. So just know that this will be the, I guess, last Brit pod for a while and everything until Falling Knife, and then we'll get back going again strong for the end of February. I really would recommend reading Britt's article on Jaylen Clark. I know many of you have been very excited about what Jaylen Clark has been, and rightfully so. And I think Britt does a really good job of highlighting that and painting that picture. You can find that over at MinPost or through his Twitter there. Britt, I appreciate you coming on and doing this. Again, Kyle and I will be back tomorrow. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. See you at Falling Knife.
Yes, sir. Until Friday morning with Kyle. He's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace.
Never stop, yeah. So you can find me in the